We were back on the Rio Baker, having stocked up on food and supplies after the last wilderness section. The river is Chile's largest in terms of volume, draining water directly from Lago General Carrera out into the sea at Tortel. Upstream are some of the gnarliest sections of Class 5 whitewater that you could find anywhere on the planet. And even where we were, further downstream, the current was more than strong enough to carry us on through the blustery headwind that picked up later that afternoon. Our first portage was to avoid a rather large and bumpy wave train that would definitely have flipped our top-heavy rafts at the first wave. By this point, it had begun raining, but when you're on the water in a dry suit anyway, it's actually quite refreshing, even enjoyable. And I'd say it brings out a different perspective in the landscape as you pass through. Soon, we arrived at the only major rapid on this section of river. You can't help but feel a certain sense of awe and wonder, mixed with a nervous tingling as you stand by such a mass of rushing water. The ground itself seemed to reverberate with its power. We launched again below the falls, our boats being spun around and pushed about in the mass of boils and whirlpools. Now, I know I mentioned that the rain can be pleasant while paddling, but this ceases to be the case after about 8 hours. This is the point where you'd want to get dry, get warm, eat some good food and sleep in a cozy bed. Well, we had none of these options, so we stayed in our dry suits until the very last moment, finally hopping into our tents and zipping ourselves into our warm sleeping bags. After yet another rainy day, we were desperate to find shelter for the night, getting lucky with an abandoned little structure. Home sweet home. To our surprise, there was a short dry spell the following morning, which saw us setting off down the river in much better spirits. We had observed overnight how the river level had risen by a significant amount, and now that the clouds began to lift, we could see hundreds of new waterfalls on the mountains all around. It was beautiful, and a few times the sunlight even made it through to our faces. It felt so good. After 4 days on the river, we were finally reaching Tortel, a small village situated right where the river meets the sea. But we weren't stopping. Our route continued to the south, to the land of wind and ice. But first, we had to paddle the fjords. When paddling in the fjords, it can be tricky to find a good camp spot, as the nature of the landscape means that the mountains come straight down to meet the sea, leaving very few places where it's possible to get out the boats, let alone to put up a tent. We were lucky enough to find a beach for the night, with enough space above the high tide mark to fit our tents. As it was raining, we made a makeshift shelter from trash we found lying on the beach to cook under. The next morning, we discovered that the overnight rain had in fact been snow on the hilltops. This explained the cold night, but also added to the character of the scenery. We set off late, having waited for the rain to ease and the temperatures to warm up a little. It was windy on the water, really windy. But as it was a tailwind, this was okay, even if some of the strong gusts threatened to snatch the paddle from our hands. The fjords are a dramatic landscape, where the weather is king, dictating what is possible and when. We truly felt tiny and insignificant on the water, totally at the mercy of the elements. It's thrilling to feel such raw power all around you. We paddled 26 kilometers that day, not even stopping for lunch. Next, though, came 90 kilometers of hiking on a dirt road. Beautiful, but dull. So after walking the first 20, we managed to hitch a ride with a lovely family, who drove us the rest of the way. Now it was freezing in the back of that pickup truck, but we didn't complain, because finally we were moving fast. Coming up next, the journey to O'Higgins, El Chalten, and the beautiful Mount Fitzroy.